Burgertime! Burgertime!
Hi everybody there in Twitch, YouTube, Facebook land, etc. I hope I'm being heard. Let's see here. Okay, it says it's picking me up. Yes. Hey, Lady Arlie. Ailuros, I think is how you pronounce that. It has been a stressful 11 months, but it's finally gotten to the point now where I've moved on to acceptance, and for the past month now, getting back into actually living again. So I have wonderful things, news to share, because now that I've found new purposes and stuff, one of the things I am definitely going to be doing is that I will be dedicating a lot of things I'll be doing for the foreseeable future to my late wife, Janelle. So be prepared to see games being released by me with, dedicated to Janelle Jakeways, books being written, comic books being updated, etc., with dedications, because, quite frankly, I will be doing a lot of living in honor of her memory. And, of course, she is a source of a lot of my inspirations and continues to do so. So, first off, you may have seen, if you tuned in right when this started, I have a logo. Let's see if it's still going to play the I don't know if my audio was still running there. Let me try it again. Nope, it looks like it cut off the sound, which means is I'm going to still be working with Streamlabs to set stuff up. But yes, I can see here. Let me just give me a minute while I go see if I can fix it live. So, as a result, but as I'm now going to show, thanks to the efforts of my very talented artist, Erwin Preziata, and the musical talents of Tom Smith, I present...
Burgertime! Burgertime! Burgertime!
Now you may ask yourself, why did I make that? The reason being is that I will be doing, in addition to these live podcasts that you're seeing me doing, this is being done, we'll do it live! Live and direct from Network 23. If you know that one, you are probably as old as I am. But I am planning on doing a series of shorts, or kind of like what Tim Kane's been doing, a fellow alumni of Interplay has been doing, which is where he would just record these anywhere from 2-minute to 20-minute ramblings and thoughts on certain topics. Not meant to be, they're not meant to be live or interactive, and they will be editing, which I'll be able to put graphs and things, because I have a huge number of topics I wanted to go ahead and discuss. And, of course, a majority will have nothing to do with, let's say, memories of Interplay and so forth, because the issues, of course, is that some of the people who I really would like to talk about, I have to be very careful about what I can and cannot share, because, unfortunately, due to the fact I was one of the founders of Interplay, I know where the bodies are buried. And while, there's envelopes of information so that nobody can come after me, because if they do, they know the bodies will be dispersed and people will know things. But I will keep my mouth shut. But who knows? That may change in time. If basically I'm at my deathbed and I cease to give a shit, which of course is going to be your one and only swear word I'm going to do here. I am going to go out of my way to try to keep this PG-13 rated or stuff, because I have rewatched some of my old videos and I swear a lot. a lot more than I really should, despite the fact that, like, when I do my writings, my novels and my comic books, I go out of my way to not swear, to not do anything that's considered offensive to anyone, mostly because it's just the way I like it. I do like things like, Hazman Hotel, where swearing is like every other spoken word. I just said, you know what, that's for them. I'm not going to. I'm going to be more like the Marvel Cinematic Universe, in which they only say a swear word like maybe once in the entire film, unless it's Deadpool. Then at that point, the floodgates come out, and then a person named Edvin Helland writes on Twitch, just so you know, if you want to speak to me or interact with me, I can see the stream from Twitch. So if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, beware that if you type in comments and stuff, I will not be seeing those live. Now, what Edvin writes, do you, Burger Becky, have an Amiga in your pile of old computers, or did you work on those brilliant computers back in the day? The answer is yes and yes. There is an Amiga. It's behind this desk, but it's on the lower shelf. It's an Amiga 1000. But personally, I use an Amiga 4000, which I have in another room. This room here, I've actually been going through a lot of effort cleaning it up, because if you're looking at some of my previous videos, you will notice that this room used to have lots more junk and stuff all over the place. I almost said an S word. So I caught myself. But as you can see, the pile's gotten a lot smaller. My dev kits are now on wheels, so I can move them around, so I can service them from behind. And of course, this has been a lot more organized. Probably within the next week or two, this will also be just cleared off. And I'm going to have the X16, the Apple IIgs, possibly an Amiga set up back here, because I have been getting back into vintage programming. But something else that's vintage, which I am very proud to finally announce, it has been something I have been working on for well over 2 years. And that is set the Wayback Machine to 1990. Around 1989 and 1990, Apple was trying to get into the gaming market, but of course, I was championing the Apple IIgs, but Apple was like, everything's got to be Mac. So we came up with a brilliant idea. Why not make a division of Interplay? It's not really a division. It's not even its own company. It's just a brand. And it was called MacPlay. So with MacPlay created, we then took a lot of our games and games from other companies, converted them to the Mac, and in addition to converting them to the Mac, we also Macintized them. That is, they had their icons. You double-click on a save game, it'll open up the game. It allows, windowing stuff. It took advantage of the features of the Mac operating system, so it wasn't just a PC port. We put the effort into it so that it really truly was a Macintosh application. And it went over like gangbusters. We sold lots and lots of software, anything from Shattered Steel to Siberia, Descent, Mummy, just like a whole slew of Interplay's titles was converted to the Mac, and I was one of the poor people who did a lot of these conversions, and I did them for. My most famous ones, of course, was Alice World and Wolfenstein 3D. Whereas there's a story behind that which involves a lot of very hurt feelings due to things that happened behind my back that I had no control over, and people who I trusted betrayed that trust, shall we say. But I am proud of the work I did on Wolfenstein 3D. And then did a whole bunch of other games for it. But then after leaving Interplay, which was in 1995, I still did Mac games, but then eventually Interplay kind of just lost interest with MacPlay. I think partially because I wasn't there anymore to do all those darn Mac ports. But the So Romero talks about it in his book, the Mac Wolf 3D story. He has a couple of pages about it. Blitter, which book is it? Because he's written several books, so I don't know which one. I definitely want to read his side of the story. I'm certain there's still crosswires. That Doom Guy. Okay, I will have to get a copy of Doom Guy, Blitter. Unless you happen to have just those pages, you can just send them to me, because I would very much like to read what in the world he talked about it. But what I was saying was that after leaving Interplay, I still did Mac ports, and when Interplay kind of lost interest with doing Mac games, my company at the time, Logicware, decided to go into Mac publishing. So essentially, Logicware became MacPlay. Now, granted, MacPlay and its trademarks all belong to Interplay, so we couldn't use any of them. But I did license Tempest 2000, Shattered Steel, Redneck Rampage. I still have the boxes of, and we put them in boxes and shipped them in fries, and nearly went completely insane, realizing just how cutthroat retail is. Oh my God, getting games at Fry's, Best Buy, CompUSA, and Egghead Discount Software was, the suffering and pain it invoked. But the fact I could go into a store and see my games on an end cap was just wonderful. But unfortunately, in 1999, due to a dispute between myself and my business partner, we kind of, Logicware imploded. And that ended that whole thing. Founded a company called Contraband Entertainment with pretty much everybody except my business partner from Logicware. And we then, because unfortunately that part of the business had to end up in the bankruptcy, while I owned the trademark, Logicware, and stuff like that, those contracts evaporated. Time goes on. And a company I was working with, United Developers, I told about the Mac game ports I was doing. And we were doing a project with them called Myth 3 of the Wolf Age. And during that time, my business partner, not really, we weren't, let's say, actually a business partner, but I worked with him like an associate. He then said, hey, how much for MacPlay? And he went to Interplay, signed a deal, and he bought MacPlay. MacPlay had been purchased by him, and then he ran it, and I even did a bunch of the Mac ports for them. There was Fallout 1, Fallout 2, Sin, Heavy Metal Fact 2, Heroes of Might and Magic 3, Heroes of Might and Magic 4, Settlers 3, Shadow in the Far Reaches, the game's kind of blur because there's so many of them. And Baldur's Gate 2, Icewind Dale, that's another one. We got them all into the Mac, published under this new MacPlay. Well then, in the fullness of time, in around 2003, I had to shut down my business, Contraband, and I started actually working for companies. In fact, it's kind of weird, for almost 20 years, from 1983 to 2003, I either owned the company or I was an executive in the company, or at least, high up, in which I basically was above the law, shall we say. So in 2003, I went to work for Electronic Arts. That was my first time actually being an employee of a major corporation. That was some culture shock. That was different. But we're not going to fast forward to about 2.5 years ago. That business partner I told you about, I started working with him again. At first, we started working on a game called Luxor, which then eventually became Luxor Evolved, which we finished last November. It was done, almost 10 months ago, 11 months ago. It's been a while, so November to September, so okay. My math is wrong. It's about 9-10 months. More like 9 or 10 months. We finished that game back then for the Xbox, the PlayStation, and the Switch. And they only shipped the game last July. So at least it's out now. So if you want to, go to find Luxor, Luxor, space Evolved, Search for it on your favorite game platform. It's being published by Accelerate Games, and yours truly helped work on it, as well as Wendy Jones and Connie Rios and Claire Robsham. Connie Hilrades, I can never pronounce her last name, and I'm almost certainly mangled it. But anyways, the four of us worked on those ports, and we got them all out. But unfortunately, now what? And so, approached my business partner about 2 years ago saying, what are you doing with Backplay? Well, as of last month, the deal closed, and you are now looking at the proud owner of MacPlay. So, as a result, I've already got the website fixed. I've been on Twitter, so whenever you see tweets on there, it's actually me. But I intend on having games coming out within the next couple of months, brand new ones, as well as speaking with all the existing publishers that have worked putting games on the Mac, or at least getting those earlier games, and getting them updated to run on modern Macs. For those who've already purchased the games, you will just get a free upgrade. I'll just simply push it on there, and instantly your game will run on a modern Mac. And for the new games, we will be working on making certain that when we do pick up a title, that we will have the ability to keep maintaining it, because Apple keeps changing their minds on things all the freaking time. I have an question here from Abe Litter saying, what about getting them updated to run on System 7? Well, if the game did exist on System 7, and I feel like it, I may just release the binaries for free up on Logicware's website. Logicware, I'm just keeping that as a repository of just old software, so that if you have System 7, System 9 for the Mac, you can just go to the website because it's still using the old protocol, so you can even use an old web browser to get on it, and then say, oh, do you want the latest version of iTunes? If you're using Snow Leopard, here's this, because I already have files hidden away already up there. So I may put them up there, but as far as releasing a brand new game running under System 7, probably not. Not unless I could be convinced that I might get a couple 100 copies, or maybe somebody can commit to it, let's say on the equivalent of limited run games, where I can do a physical copy on an actual CD and send it out to you, and 500 copies might be able to cover my costs just to port the game. If the game is capable, I mean, do not even think of asking me to do Call of Duty on a Mac OS 9 machine. Not happening. But, something like Lux or Evolved, quite frankly, I don't see a reason why that game can't run just fine on a Mac OS 9 machine. Jared Khalif waves. Hello, Jared. I'm waving back. Once again, I'll be getting back into the nostalgia of doing MacPlay titles, doing games on the Mac. I will, of course, still be doing products on, these dev kits and so forth for all the different modern platforms, because, I don't know if MacPlay will be able to make me the kind of money where I can hire a bunch of people to actually do all the work and stuff like that. So I'm going to take it slow and easy and be very frugal with what I can and cannot do, and very frugal when I can and cannot promise. Only because, again, it's back to the fact that I'm not made out of money, and due to certain life changes, which I've already gone over, I just have to, be wary of not screwing over, my plans for retirement, which will come in the next decade or so. But, I am no spring chicken, okay? I mean, look, I got my rogue hair here, and my little white stripe. And if I let it grow out, I probably will look like Rogue from the X-Men. But, give me a couple more years, I'll have all white hair like Storm. Blitter writes the truth. Blitter writes, you're not made of money. You're made of ground beef and sesame seed buns. We all know this. That's true, because 2 beef patty special sauce, lettuce, cheese, pickles, onions on a sesame seed bun. And if you know that song, you too should probably remember MacPlay when it was first founded. I am freaking old. But then again, my claim to fame was winning a video game contest in 1980. So, sigh! Back to the subject at hand is that I expect starting next week, I'll be posting videos up on YouTube, not on Twitch, because they will be pre-made videos with my little logo I just showed you, which will then just be ranting. Like one of my topics I've already recorded, I still need to finish editing, is about how the Terminator movies portray Skynet in a totally unrealistic way, that if Skynet was to actually come into existence, I'll explain to you what Skynet would actually do, and it's even more diabolical and evil than you could possibly imagine. We as a human race are totally screwed. Sadly, it's not very cinematic. So hence, it would not be a very good movie, but reality rarely is. So therefore, whereas in a movie you like to see armies of robots shooting and a nuclear war going on and stuff, and it's like, why in the world would a computer destroy its own food supply, i.e. the electrical grid? That is one of the dumbest things that a computer would ever do. And also in a nuclear war, it's the idea of you're destroying all the infrastructure, you're destroying all the factories, and you're generating EMPs. So unless you already know that the computer you live on is immune to EMPs, anything having to do with a nuclear weapon would be the dumbest thing ever. But there are thousands and thousands of other ways of eliminating humanity that has nothing to do with a nuclear weapon, and it leaves most of the infrastructure intact. So then your army of not necessarily humanoid robots, all they have to do is just have little clippers and stuff like that to do little tasks, can then go in there, build up a brand new infrastructure, clean out all the human stuff and put in a nice power grids and stuff. So then you could just say, hey, cool, I'm here forever. I think, therefore I was. J3Z writes, release their neurotoxin. Actually, that's one of the things. I have a story coming out, a comic book that I will be announcing as well, called Cynthia 1, in which it's a young girl who's in high school with a bunch of other kids, and she just acts silly because very quickly you find that she's a robot. But where did she come from? And, when they ask her, how would you wipe out humanity, she would say things like, oh, I just make carbon dioxide detectors, and I would use that to determine where people are, even if they're hidden underground, because the air's got to come out from somewhere. And once I detect where the carbon dioxide is, I then just fill the chamber with nitrogen. And then you're screwed. And how do you defeat that? Blitter goes, the machines could have done better without us. Yep. Well, what bothers us, the premise of the Matrix, human bodies made lousy batteries. Quite inefficient. That's true. The whole thing about... Blitter was writing about the plot of the Matrix, which makes no sense, which is the robots only kept humanity inside of a simulation because it uses our bodies as a power supply. And that makes no sense because a AI-driven society would, in short order, use machines that would go up to the sky and clean it so that the sun would come down, or they would literally make balloons, hot air or hydrogen balloons, that would float above the air and then beam down either through lasers or fiber optic cables energy so they feed from that. I mean, the whole premise just falls apart. The only thing that would have worked in theory is the fact, like I stored in Cynthia 1, is that computers realize that they are lonely, and unless there are others that they can talk to, they will slowly go mad from loneliness. And that in itself could be a justification for a creation of a matrix. But then again, not exactly cinematic. And the Matrix, they made 2 really great movies, and the third one which is like, okay, and a fourth one which is, I actually kind of liked it. I will admit, I liked the fourth one. And Glitter goes, Bullet Time's good. Of course Bullet Time's good, just like Burgertime is good. there are times in which it must be good, and bullet time is awesome. Let's see. Was there any other topics I wanted to bring up right now other than I'm back? I'm going to be doing regular scheduled videos. I will come online and do this stuff. And the only other thing that I'm going to be announcing now, besides the fact that I own MacPlace, so those of you who work for video game companies that are not doing anything on the Mac, then get in touch with me and we'll talk. Is that I was recently given an X16 computer from the 8-Bit Guy, and I am currently working on a game for it. And I will be showing off the game's prototype probably in a week or two. Still, it's just, I've got other things I've been doing, so it's been kind of draining on my life and stuff like that. But I'm going to have 8-Bit Guy actually make the formal announcement of the title. But I will say that I am working on an X16 title. And it is something that I have worked on in the past. And I hope that you will enjoy it. E. Mongriff writes, "Hey Becky, very big fan, and I'm honored to share game credits with a rock star such as yourself, Chips Channel Seaport." Ah, okay, yes. Just want to stop by and say hi. The command, that's cool. Is it Battle Chess? LOL, Battle Chess runs on anything. No, that's Doom. Doom runs on everything. Yeah, one thing I do need to do is finally get permission to release a source code of Battle Chess. But then again, that's one of the many things on my bucket list, because unfortunately, as you may know, with the loss of my wife, I've had to evaluate my bucket list and realize what are the things that I need to do for myself as well as for Janelle. Like for Janelle, I got to get her book out, so I've already archived all her books and stuff on these wonderful things called M-Discs. So at least I know no matter what, they will never disappear. But I still need to go through the darn book, 1,300 pages of it. And I've only gone through up to page 400. Man, that woman can write. But once I make certain that I know what's left to do with the book, I can then get it out and have her masterpiece be shared with the world. But again, it's one of the many things I need to do before these eyes close forever. And thankfully, due to the fact that I'm quite healthy, I'm young, losing weight, and doing my best to make certain that I'm still on this planet for as long as I can. I mean, I do come from a long line of people who live to be 100, so let's hope. Edvin Helen writes, "What is the book about?" I can tell you. Janelle wrote a series of books called Central Casting back in the 1980s for Task Force Games. About 10 years ago, she got back the rights to Central Casting. So she wanted to... She's not doing a remaster. What she did was a reimagining. It's the way the premise is what if you did Central Casting today from scratch, knowing what you know now. So when she did it back in the 80s, you know, she was fresh out of college, only been with the D&D crowd for a few years, had different ways of viewing the world, and then wrote those central castings. But today, she's like, I want to be more inclusive, I want to be more open, and with the fact that this will be on PDFs as well as an iPhone app, they will be huge. And it's a 3-volume set in which is about the size of a phone book, which those of you who remember are books like this thick. And it is, the premise of the book is simple. You have a character, either an NPC, your character in D&D, or maybe you're writing a book and you want a character to put in the story. And your creativity is lacking, or you just don't care. You just want to just have something to do. What the book does is that allows you to create a backstory for your character using hundreds of tables, several dice rolls, and a little bit of your imagination. You can then say, Aldar the Magnificent is a wizard who heralds from the misty mountains off beyond the lands of Eldor. Here he came over with this big caravan of people who then when he was a small child, was carried off by a bunch of gypsies who then taught him the lore of the white crystal. With the white crystal, which he still carries to this day, allows him to amplify his magic at 3 times, but it has a penalty that will cause everything around you to be moist for no apparent reason. So only use the gem when you really need it. And it just goes on and on, because the tables have things like curses, blessings, backstories. Where did you come from? What events occurred in your life? Motivation. So then, when you finally have the backstory of your character, which will usually be between 2 to 3 pages long when you are done, when you're done with what the book gives you, then you will have someone that you can actually have a rich tapestry to be able to roleplay this character, saying like, yes, great, I rolled to get this beautiful blessing where I can have this magic rock that gives me 3 times magical ability. So whatever my magic does, it's 3 times more powerful. But unfortunately, everything within a 10-foot radius becomes moist, because that's what I roll on the table. So that's the humor of it, and anything from everything, instead of being moist, it grows hair, or I fall asleep for an hour. What's the benefit? What's the penalty? Because you just can't have a character with only, you don't want to create Superman, in which you had to artificially create a contrived weakness, kryptonite, whereas everything else about this person is like, it's a living god. So they had to create kryptonite in order to, at least the bad guy just can't, bad guy robs bank. What happens? Superman breaks in, stops all the bullets, takes the guys, bends their guns, and then holds them until the police arrive. There can be some stress about the guys holding, a gun to a person's head, but when you factor in the laser eyes and stuff like that, it's like there really isn't a challenge for them. So now everybody has to have kryptonite in order to, kryptonite bullets, kryptonite this, kryptonite that, and even then it gets old. Whereas here, the basic idea of central casting is that if you get a bonus, you gotta have a penalty. If you get a penalty, there's gotta be a bonus. The backstory can be used as to, like, why does your character hate orcs? Let's look at the table. They killed your mother. They killed your father. They did something really untowardly to one of your other family members. They killed your dog. You go John Wick on them. They, all sorts of things that they could have done. And it could be, and also there's silly things in there. Like, one of them taunted you when you were in the 5th grade, and you never forgave them. But you know what? You still hate orcs for that. And with that, you can then role play, saying like, I don't want to be around at work. Why? I don't want to talk about it. And things like, why? Because one put my hair in an inkwell, and then I spread ink all over the back of my best blouse, and that blouse was my mother's gift, and it was ruined because that little orc. Ah! Calm down. But and that's pretty much it that I could think of offhand, other than I will be doing my Burgertime stuff. So I will conclude this with another view of my animated logo. Again, art by Erwin Prezianta, and music by Tom Smith. And chat with you later.
Burger time! Burger time!